All right, what's going on, guys? We are back with another episode of the PokeTalk podcast. How's it going, Phillip?
Not too bad. Pretty psyched for this recording.
Yeah, it's going to be a kind of a weird topic, in my opinion. Kind of touching on, I don't know if we mentioned it last episode, but certain cards that we admire from a distance. That was going to be our question for last episode, but I don't think we really touched on it. We may have mentioned it, but
I think we did. Yeah, we did a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about some cards that are not necessarily in our collection, or maybe they were at one point, but some cards that we might be okay with not owning that we just kind of watch, or, you know, maybe if we had hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe buy them. But yeah, just some that are a little too much or too out there for us. I know in one card in particular, the base set Charizard, you ran some numbers, and you have some interesting numbers across the years for us on that card.
Mm-hmm. I actually chose the big three, but I'll just kind of do a Kit Kat just freaked out a little bit. But I'll just kind of do a brief touch, the other two, and kind of focus on the Charizard with that one.
Yeah. And yeah, in my opinion, that really shows us, everyone knows the 2020 hype, but it's nice to touch on it, going back to that 2016.
But it's fun seeing the notches of the graph for 2020.
Yeah.
Just like a volcano erupting, like straight up.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And, like you said before we started, we kind of have to exclude that, but it is nice to see. And, now that we're a few years out of that on the backside, you do, like in that situation, if you look at a few years after and you do cut that out, I mean, it is a nice, healthy growth if you, take out 2020 and that crazy up and down. But, But yeah, we'll touch on that. I definitely have a few that I've been watching here lately.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of blaze through some news topics because we did just have Pokemon Day and a bunch of news on that. Anything that you wanted to touch on real quick?
Yes. This is episode 54, a.k.a. 2 years.
Woo!
Woo!
I'll try to do your woo!
Woo! I don't know if that's what I'm doing, but I do it. But no, anyways, pretty excited. Didn't think we'd get to this point. Pretty awesome. Can't wait to potentially get to episode 100. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, and here's to many, many more.
Yep, for sure. We're just checking along, keeping us interested in the hobby and on top of all the news. So.
Oh, and I guess this is a part of the news. Well, first, real fast with the intro, I did organize all my collection that I had that I wanted to sell. Nothing really special. It includes a bunch of raw cards I had pilfered through my bulk, some raw cards from binders that I've had, and just a few kind of junk slab, but kind of low value slab. They're kind of in between, and some cards that weren't necessarily junk, but they were part of my collection and they had a lot of value to me. But I'm kind of going ahead and just putting everything aside and okay, this is what I did with the PSA 9 Mario, and we're doing the same thing again to try to get that first edition Charizard. And I just broke everything down on what I'm willing to sell, splitting it into groups and to where I'll sell it or where it goes. I got a stack for Yeti. I figure if I can get 50% on the market value, hell yeah. That's money that's free money to me, because these raw cards, a lot of them are cards that I don't want to go through the hassle of selling. It's not worth my time, and cards that would take a long time to sell on my own.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do. I kind of told you, my usual thing, which I think I covered on the podcast. I kind of collect over the years and just kind of build up stuff. And then one day I'm like, why do I have all this? I just need to, get rid of it and put it in like a bigger card. So it is a nice way for me to kind of stay in the hobby, just kind of slowly collect these side cards, if you will, and then one day just get tired of them, and then sell them probably for a little less than I could if I like put in the work to sell them like that. But yeah, it is nice just to cut the ties, um, and just go for something like a bigger goal. A little money lost is okay as long as you're collecting something that you like, or selling it for something that you like, as we've always said. So sometimes, the hustlers out there with ultra modern, really, you guys are putting in the work. I see people on Facebook like hustling for these booster boxes, making like $10 a booster box, which is, yeah, it's like great, but I mean the amount of work you got to do and ship and
Yeah.
message people, especially when they're working through like Facebook, it's like,
You already
you
got to deal
know,
with the stress of it potentially being a bad deal.
yeah. When it comes to my stuff like that, I look at the time. Like, even if I have like a $50 card, like it's like, you know, for $50, how much work am I gonna have to do to like, yeah, I'll list it and throw it on eBay, and then that'll be it. Won't do much more than that, and I'll probably be taking out a good chunk with the fees. But when it comes down to like a $30 card, and it's like I have a bunch of them, it's like the amount of time just doesn't make sense. I would
Oh, I'll do
almost
you one. I'll do you one better. Some of them are worth, a decent amount are worth under $5. So it's like,
yeah,
they're not necessarily like anything that was under $2 to $3. I didn't even include it in the stat. I consider the other stuff bulk, like pure bulk. But yeah, there's a lot of cards there were several like Evolution Vs from EV Heroes. I don't know if Yeti takes that. It's like $40, $50 in Japanese cards, but they are evolutions. But yeah, again, it's one of those things on your own. Are you going to take the time to sell that on TCG Player? No. Or even on eBay? No. It's not worth the time. It just isn't. Like there is a true value of opportunity cost with your time. You know what I mean?
yeah. And if you
So
have like $25 cards, I mean, just look at it this way: would you rather get like 70% value for 20 cards and like absolutely a fraction of work, like you just bring the cards to someone like Vince at Yeti and sell them? Or do you like get full value for like 13, 14 cards? Like that's how I look at it. Like if I have a stack of 20 cards that are $5, I would almost rather just take them to Vince, get the 70% for 20 cards, because I'm thinking of it in my head. Well, this is just like selling like 13, 14 of these cards at full price, based on the numbers game. That's how I'm looking at it.
well, and it varies what he gives for credit. I think a lot of times he'll give around 65. He will do more if it's a good card. So, and like the fluidity does matter. If he can't flip it within 30 to 60 days, he really isn't interested on a lot of that stuff. And, especially if it's a higher end card. And I mean, I understand, know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
And
there are,
they're
but
thinking
there
the
are,
same thing. Like it's not
you
worth
know,
it to them unless they can
hmm
get it for that
exactly.
cheap and take it off the top.
Exactly. Like, a brick and mortar store has to worry about margins more than, say, like a person that travels to card shows because they have a lot more overhead. Not saying they don't with the tables, the gas, the hotels, all that. What I'm saying is there is more overhead to deal with, like, employees, all of that. And there's only so much you can push. There's a reason why the Whatnot streamers have been a blessing in disguise in this hobby, because they've been able to eat up a lot of stuff that if people weren't able to eat up would be problematic, honestly. Like a lot of stuff would go not zero, but pretty cheap if they couldn't eat it up. Like
Yeah.
there'd just be a bunch of floating plastic and cardboard and plastic around there worth nothing.
Yep, for sure. They're a blessing to have those stores, and
Yep.
yeah, it's like yeah, just got to factor in the work. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're doing that, like I said, my method, just imagine you have less and that you're getting full price, because that makes it a little better.
I mean, if
Sacrifices just have to be made to make the deal that easy.
and when you have stuff like that, like some of these cards, if you can get 65% and put that towards a very like solid card, say if it ends up being a several $100s, like, I'm looking at a lot of Vince's page. He's got a lot of e-reader stuff, EX stuff that's awesome looking art cards. I'm like, would you rather have these random single cards that's mostly ultra modern, or would you rather have a cool PSA 9 graded card that's EX era or like e-reader era? I
Yeah.
mean, the choice is pretty simple to me. And if I get 65% on that, I'd be ecstatic. I'm planning for 50% in trade. That's what I'm planning for. Like, I'm bracing for the worst because I understand like some of this stuff is going to be more difficult to sell. And if I get 65%, I'd be like, hell yeah. And guy got upset that I tried to haggle with him because it's kind of my job. I do it 40 hours a week. So he got upset because I've done that every time now. So in order not to piss off this guy, I'm just going to ask another guy when it's time to check out, 10%, 15% off whatever price it's listed at. I mean, that way you don't piss them off. And I mean, if they say no, they say no.
Yeah.
And if not, well, I just got potentially a $500 to $400 card, for a great price. But
Yeah, pretty wild.
yeah, I was saying just real fast. The last stack I had was just cards to grade, and hopefully I can grade next month. That's about all I have to say, though, with what I saw with my collection.
Yeah. Just moving into a couple quick news topics here. There's a good article on PokeBeach. We talked about TCG Pocket, in the last episode. It's really interesting. We're not going to talk about it much here, except, they pretty much go over what they think the gameplay is going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
They noticed 3 bench cards instead of 5. They noticed no energy cards, but like an energy pool, kind of like a mana pool maybe in Magic. So that might be interesting, but yeah, if you're interested in some things, go ahead and check that out. They break down some of the cards as well. Should be pretty interesting, kind of like Battling and Go, like we said. Really dumbed down version, meant to be quick and easy and do multiple games probably. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention on this too. This is really exciting because this is like the actual Pokemon company doing this game. And there was a video I watched last week where, obviously I didn't really pay much attention because I don't really play the game online in any form, but TCG Online and then TCG Live, I think it is, the other iterations of playing the game online, just have been scrutinized over the years, deservedly so, because their game client is just not good. And it's been like a clustery mess. And no matter what they do, it just it's not a good experience. It's not smooth, especially when you compare it to like Magic Arena for MTG and even the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links for Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just bad. And I think part of the reason for that, and what I saw in this video, which I didn't really realize, like a lot of those games are Pokemon Company International. They're in charge of like the leagues and stuff, and they're also in charge of like those online formats to play the Pokemon game. So you have people designing the TCG in Japan, and they're not really even tied to the digital version of the game. But with TCG Pocket, this is going to be, straight from the source game. So that gives me a lot of hope, even if it's going to be a lesser version. Just having a quick mobile TCG game and a way to collect cards. Just, we said it was going to be huge, but it just makes me think like it's going to be even better. And then hopefully once they see the success, maybe they'll release their own full version to play.
Well, I'd say one thing I can't help but notice, and it's like, whoa, is seeing like set name with pack art.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just generic, here's a Pikachu pack art. Here's a set name with a Pikachu pack art. That's a big difference. but no, seriously, that tells me, so they're going to start having reoccurring set releases now. Like, that's very interesting. Like, they're serious about what they're going to do with this going forward. This is just the beginning.
Yeah, it appears
we are talking about a whole new market within Pokemon TCG.
Yeah, it's like it's looking like entirely developed for mobile only packs and totally separate with some recycled artwork, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's going to be huge and like I said, 20, 30 years of Pokemon still going, this might be the majority way people play and collect because, you know, the collecting will always be there for the physical cards, but if you're just starting out as a kid today, kids 5 years old have phones now and they can play Pokemon on their phone and have a digital collection. And then when they're like in their teens and they start making money, they have their entire digital collection. It's like, well, I don't need to do, the physical collection because I have my digital collection and I've spent all this time, you know. So yeah, it's just kind of wild, but that's all I really had to say about that. There's more breakdown in that article, but let's see what else I got here.
Well, we have the TCPI vending machines now in the U.S.
Where are they popping
I
up at?
actually, well, there's 200 now, and I'm just learning the fact that there has been any in the country. First off, that's complete news to me. I had no idea. I did not know this was a thing,
I've seen people
and
post about them, but yeah, they're always like
I
maybe
assumed
at
they were
like
in Japan. I always assumed they were in Japan.
yeah,
Like whenever I have seen this design of the machine before on Instagram, I never paid attention. It was just scrolling through. It was always a subplot of the posts or whatever. So it was one of those things where I just didn't really think much of it.
yeah. I've seen them. Who was it who was posting them? Maybe like Unlisted Leaf. They were in like an airport or something, and yeah,
I mean,
they're in
they're all on
Japan.
the West Coast, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'd be cool to see one, or if they had just normal packs, and
Oh
I'm sure there's gonna be a
shit.
new story of someone busting the glass to
Oh yeah,
get all the
that's gonna
stuff.
make rounds.
Yeah,
So I'm going to Colorado, and I wonder if any of these are close to the area we're going to be at. Some of them is in Aurora in like Denver. I'm not going to be too far from there as we go into the Rocky Mountains. Might have to. I kind of have to just like. I'm going to be a tourist, and I think I'm going to have to try to dabble and use one of these things just to say.
yeah.
But
There you go.
but no, they're pretty much all on the West Coast. They're kind of seeping inward now because there's some in Texas. But
I got a Scream Pikachu offer. This guy's wanting 20. It's listed 2,500, wanting 2,400.
Scream Pikachu.
Yeah. I
Oh, this
think
is happening in real live time.
real time, yeah.
Oh
The
man,
the
this
last
is.
auctions, some sold for 22. I
And
sent
he's wanting what? How is it you said?
24 he sent, but it is a buy it now price. That's what they've been going for, but I'm trying to get that auction price.
But I mean, I don't know.
But
It's
yeah,
not that much different, but I understand where you're coming from.
yeah. It's like to get that, I would have to sell more of the gold stars, and it's like, well, I'll do it
Well,
if I get it at a good price.
I see where he's coming from because the last two sold in the last couple of days, 2,800, 2,200, 2,400 is not bad, 2,600 in February, 2,500. I don't know. That's not a bad. I
Yeah.
just
But if I can't get it at the 22 or 22.5, it's like, well,
yeah
might as well wait till Collect-A-Con because I'm going to have to pay 23, 24 with taxes.
yeah.
But yeah. Another news, real quick, Star Wars Unlimited. Have you guys heard about this?
Have you?
Hardly
Have you? Anybody?
hardly anybody has. They got a new TCG out, which is apparently pretty decent. Like this is Star Wars' best attempt at a TCG. I don't know how good their other attempts were. I never played them, never really collected them. They're cool. They got cool art. It's kind of like a old school slash comic-y art on a lot of these. So I really dig the art style. But yeah, they just kind of dropped this on everybody quick. Good luck to them. It's everyone's jumping in. It's interesting with Disney owning Star Wars. Maybe they're just trying to keep the two separate. Figured maybe we'd have, Star Wars hop into Lorcana at some point down the road, but they might just be trying to keep it as the OG Disney line. But yeah, interesting. Cards are cool. Good luck to them. See what else we got. I think the only other thing I had, well, two things quick for me. Another thing about Pokemon TCG Pocket, there was a news article about Pokemon, like a job position, pretty much talking about someone being involved in the NFT space. So it's another theory we talked about last episode, where if they could like NFTize or however you want to say that, Pokemon cards, that would be pretty big, especially for the TCG Pocket. When I was digging for that story, though, apparently on Polygon, which is Matic on the crypto world side, there are people who are taking actual physical cards, like real cards, and making NFTs out of them and like selling them on the blockchain. So it's already a thing in like the underground NFT world, and people are already doing packs of like NFT cards. So yeah, there's like two sides of that story. It would be interesting if somehow they could incorporate that into Pocket, but we'll see. Only other thing I had was PSA is finally offering a TCG Collectibles magazine. First issue is going to have 4 covers featuring Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur, and Pikachu. And it's kind of like them taking their current PSA magazine, and they always have like some Pokemon article in there. It's going to be like an entire magazine dedicated to that stuff. So really amazing. I get the magazine every month with my membership. It's like I read the Pokemon article and then I toss it away. But another thing is these are all online, so hopefully they make this one online as well. But apparently it's going to be pretty limited. You had to get an email to confirm that you wanted this magazine rather than the sports magazine. So yeah, the first ones might be pretty limited. But yeah, that'll be out in April. Any other news you wanted to touch on? Or should
Yeah,
we jump in?
there was really only one more thing. You know, for all the dozens of us that still play Pokemon Go, dozens, there is Pokemon Go Fest 2024 was announced this past week, and yeah, it's going to be in a few places like usual, but it's going to be in New York again. I think it's also Spain and here I'm just going to assume. I think it's Spain and Japan.
Yeah, probably Japan in there.
Yeah, you got to have Japan in there. But yeah, anyways, it's pretty cool because it is at New York again. A bunch of cool events. We've already booked the hotel. We've already got the tickets. The only thing we have, yep, it is Japan. The only thing, and it is Madrid. The only thing we haven't gotten are the tickets. Honestly, New York is such an amazing city. I already cannot wait to go back there. And July 4th in New York City, man. July 4th. Like that's pretty cool seeing the fireworks go off.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So
Yeah,
it's like the evening of July 4th is the event.
So July 5th to July 7th. We're going Saturday, which is July 6th, but we're going up there Tuesday. So we're going to be there Wednesday to I think Tuesday. So it's going to be a week basically. Again, we kind of went crazy last year with how much stuff we did. We learned our lesson not to do that last year. We were burnt out on the last day. But we kind of have a few idea of some of the stuff we're going to do, but we're not going to book the whole thing. I'm pretty excited. I'm a big Bob Dylan and, music fan, and I'm going to see all the big spots in New York. I'm going to see where the Ramones played a bunch, where they got big, Blondie, going to see, the Physical Graffiti album cover where Bob Dylan started pretty much, before he got big. Like, I'm pretty excited.
There you go.
Yeah. But
yeah, it'll be interesting. I play on the Go Fest, the global, obviously.
it's the best time to play.
Yeah, I never would really consider traveling that far unless I plan like more stuff. But
Well, it's easy when there's two of us playing it, so it doesn't make it as expensive. And the way I see it is New York is such a great city. Like, I understand not wanting to experience, not wanting to go there for too long, but like, honestly, there's so many historic landmarks that are there. Like, I feel it's so much culture has stemmed from New York City. Like, it's just going there and just touching base with like where this area birthed so much culture is kind of humbling and also invigorating.
yeah, yeah, I'd like to see the city one day for sure.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably spend like maybe 1 2 days there, and then I don't know. I'd kind of venture out a little bit. Kind of like to check out Boston too, and I've been
Boston.
Boston. I've been to Washington D.C. Kind of would like to go back there too, though.
Yeah, that's a big place I need to go. I was supposed to go my sophomore year. Long story short, '08 recession happened not too long around that time. There wasn't a whole lot of, but it was leading up to it. They couldn't get enough tickets to go. Ours class was the first year where they never went to DC. So, and 20 years later, 16 years later, whatever it is, still haven't gone. So
Went for a
that,
band trip of
yeah,
all things. So band,
interesting.
yeah, band in high school is cool. I mean, you get to go a lot of places, and just the band culture
Hmm.
is fun. But yeah, we played in the Memorial Day parade, so that was pretty cool. Very hot. Don't really remember the parade much because it was like just super hot. We just wanted to get it over with. But we saw a bunch of the monuments and stuff, and
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty nice. Like I like I said, did I prefer it being in another state so I could knock another state off my list? Yeah, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff didn't have time to do in New York that we wanted to do. That I don't mind going back there, and then I swear to God, if it's there next year, I'm going to be seriously contemplating not going though,
Yeah,
because it's worth it going to see everything, right? But going 3 straight years with the cost and everything, it makes it. Yeah, I really hope it's not next year.
I don't think it will be. It'll probably be West Coast again. Didn't they do
Yeah,
West Coast and they went back to Chicago and then
well, no, it was that. See, it was Chicago 2019, then the pandemic, so 2021, and then 2022, it was Seattle, and then last year was New York. So I thought they were alternating it finally. So I thought this year was going to be in the Midwest, and it wasn't. And I was
yeah,
like, well, throw out everything I thought. You know what I mean? So now I'm wondering if it's going to be in New York City, like they had it in Chicago for 3 straight years. But I mean, they can do it in Chicago again or Colorado. I don't understand why not.
yeah,
And there's places in Minnesota that they can do it in too. I thought it was going to be in Colorado, Minnesota, Chicago, or Kansas City.
yeah.
But
Columbia.
no, but I thought it would be seriously somewhere in the Midwest. Like I kind of right, like Denver to me made Colorado made a lot of sense to me. You can have it in the dead of summer and it wouldn't be crazy hot.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird how they do that. I feel
But
like Pokemon Worlds is on a schedule now. Um, you know, like we kind of guessed, but there was a leak that we talked about last episode where they might be looking at San Francisco. So that's going to throw off the rotation for Worlds there also if that happens. So just everything's out of whack now. They're keeping us on our toes. Would be nice if they just like plan these things out a little better with like a schedule like that, but I feel like people would then plan ahead like years in advance and then it would just be bigger than it actually is already. So it's a struggle.
hmm.
But yeah, I'm curious to get into these base set Zard numbers for the first
Okay, yeah, yeah.
editions. Um, so yeah, with the topic being cards that you admire from a distance, I assume the first one of yours is the big three of first ed base set.
Yep. Obviously, I would just before I go into the numbers, I would just kind of going into a few of the cards because I don't want to get too overwhelmed with just throwing out numbers because this is a podcast where it's audio based, not visual based.
Yeah.
So it is just me throwing out numbers. So I'm just going to kind of go over at a glance kind of the ranges from those years and just kind of give the overall, estimates or like increases from like 2019 to 2021,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Just to
We
show
could
that
we
one of
could
the
talk
growth
about our
between,
cards in general too, and then come back to the
yeah,
numbers at the end if you want.
that's,
Either way.
I'd be okay with that. Just do it at the end.
Yeah.
And then, so for me, obviously there is the big three. That is without question. It is on my grail list. And it's kind of default without saying some of the ponchos I mentioned. But there's a few that I haven't really mentioned in a while, and a few that I've sold before that weren't really expensive cards, but prioritized. Remember how we said prioritize collections, and that's what's going on. I might buy the cards raw though, just because they're really cheap raw, believe it or not. But the main one is probably the 2009 illustration contest cards with the Arceus. Multiple Arceus, your second, third, fourth, fifth grade winners. Korokoro, I mean, all of them. Let's be real, all of them. And those, like, that's my true grail. And I saw somebody post one on Instagram that they had it like at a con, and a PSA 10, $40,000. Now, they're also just kind of throwing out a number. And I think there's a 9 that potentially sold on Heritage. I would have to double check because it was not the same one, but it was like 15,000 that they sold at, I think. And there's not a whole lot of 10s known at all. And going back to what we said about them, most of the ones probably came from the printing room, not from the kids themselves.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's funny how we have seen a few of these hit the market though in the last few years.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I feel like everything the last few years in general has been pretty wild to see. We keep seeing illustrators pop up. We're seeing some trophies pop up. Seeing snap cards pop up. It's weird the numbers have finally drawn stuff out, and overall I think that's going to come to a crawl or calm down a little bit, but with some of the trends in your numbers and some of the just things we've been feeling in general, I think the market's in a really good spot. We might potentially be in an area where things are going to increase again. We've been saying this for over a year now, like we do with many trends and many things on the podcast. But if that happens and the numbers get big again, I mean, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that stuff move hands again, just because people are going to want to capitalize. It should, capital S should, be like a more healthier growth than we had in 2020, because we already are seeing little healthy growth on stuff that has bottomed out already. But yeah, if that happens, I think more people will want to capitalize on it. Well, maybe this is another hype. I want to sell it now because I didn't capitalize on it in 2020. But I don't know. I think if you truly want a card and you never want it to leave your collection, I think now's the time to settle in. If you have that card, be really cautious of selling it unless you're putting the money into another one you want. It's getting to that feeling. If we have healthy growth, that feeling a lot of us had in 2020, which was like, this is a lot of money. If I sell this, I'm never going to get this card back again. It wasn't really the case because of the giant bubble and the popping of that bubble. But I think if we're in a market now where it's nice and slow and healthy, I think that actually might be the case. I think the 20K PSA 9 first ed Charizard, this might be the floor. Like, even if we do see another bubble and it comes back down, a certain amount of those Charizards are going to get absorbed and never come back out. So maybe the next floor is 25 or 30.
Well,
it's hard to tell, but I just got that feeling.
I want to say, and just looking back at what we can see with the PSA APR, we'll go into that more later, obviously, but the cards haven't gone down. Well, besides 2020, let me rephrase that. You
Excluding
know,
2020.
yeah, 2020 is an outlier. Let me rephrase this: the cards have not gone down from 2016; they've only gone up. So
Yeah. If you
that's all
take
the
that out.
information. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the main thing there. But though the 2009 illustration contest cards are on the list, 2008 illustration cards with like Aurora, and the one I can't remember the one it is, but the one that has all the legendaries in the background with Aurora.
Oh yeah, that's one of the Art Academy or illustration contest one.
Yeah, it's from the 2010 illustration contest.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one it was.
Um, let me see.
That's what I'm just trying to find. But anyways, I guess it's not really important. The exact name of it, just it's one of the ones from the 2010 illustration contest.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Got all the legends in the back.
Hmm.
Yep, that is a pretty good one.
Yeah, that's one of them. Like you can, I mean, just grails at this point, really. But one big one also is I can appreciate it. I can cheat a little bit because you have a lot of these cards on my list. So while I don't own them, I've been able to touch them and have them in my hand. So both vicariously and literally, I've been able to experience them. So while I don't own them, I've been able to experience them.
Yeah, and that's sometimes that's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, and because a few of the cards are the 2016 20th anniversary Festa. It doesn't have to be a PSA 10, it's just in general.
Yeah.
And anytime, I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if you bring that with you on KCCon or whatever. But you're probably gonna crack it out, and I'll be able to experience it again. You know what I mean? So that, and then like some of your gold stars, like just the Charizard gold star. It's not as crazy expensive as it was, but just being able to hold that. I mean, that's the best Charizard artwork probably ever,
Yeah.
or definitive top three, and just being able to hold that, or the Rayquaza Gold Star. All these cards that a lot of people probably might not ever have the experience or the ability to be able to experience this. It's been pretty awesome because a lot of cards that would be on my list, I've been able to experience because you had them.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of cards still, even then, that's not the case.
Rayquaza Gold Star would be one that I want to upgrade my condition a little bit on. I talked about this goal of maybe collecting the gold stars again. If I do, I would settle at PSA 7 or above just because they're rarity. Um, and I had a lot of sevens. Like that was a good number for me where I could like settle that. I'll buy. I don't think I'd ever buy a 10 gold star unless it's maybe the three beasts that were widely available. It just doesn't make sense for me. It does, but it doesn't. Like it makes
Now you
sense
have three
why they're
ways.
so much more higher with the rarity and availability, but like that premium is just like too much for me. Um, Same goes for the Festa Pikachu, like you just mentioned. I was gonna say that was one of the cards that now that it has doubled since I got it, it's like one of those where I would probably not let that one go unless it was for something huge. Um, like that one, I could maybe justify it at what I bought it at, or when the 10 was like 4,000. But I had that card when it was $100, like I've told before, and it's like seeing it go from like $100 to 4,000. It's like okay, like I need to get this card and like hold it, and then now that's jumped to 9. It's like
And that card's only going up.
it's like yeah, it's like okay, I can't I can't bring myself if I didn't have this card. Like I don't think I would buy it at the 9 that it is today, 9,000.
Well, and that's one where there's not a whole lot of those. One, because of the availability of it, but two, just grade it. Um, Like, what was it when we looked at it? It was like it was under 900 graded, right? It's something.
Surely there's more than that. If I had to
There's a lot
say,
of here 20th anniversary Festa Pokemon GCG.
if I had to
Oh, sorry.
guess, I would think there's surely more. Let me see.
It
I
was
think I got it here.
maybe it was 810s, but I here. God, it's celebrations. No, I don't want celebrations.
I do hate how PSA, like, when you search that card, it brings up, like, you have to look by a whole group of promos.
Yeah, because you can't just you got to go to the XY promos.
And I think it's like 287 if I had to pull a hair out of my
I think I
ass.
found it 279. Is that it?
Yeah, I think 279. Now that you say that, that sounds more
Here,
correct.
hold on.
I pulled the wrong hair out of my ass.
You did.
But
You really did. Here, hold on. Damn it! Now it takes me to it takes me to all the promos.
yeah,
So
I found it here. I just searched all those promos, but 1,100 total graded,
yeah,
962 in a 10.
so I wasn't too far off. When we checked, it wasn't over 1,000 of those graded. It was
Yeah.
around. It was under 900. So it has increased, obviously, and that 10% is ridiculous.
Yeah, there is a PSA 1 out there. There's Pop 1, PSA 1, PSA
Yeah.
3, and PSA 4 is Pop 1.
God, that's like a 90% almost 10 rate. But see, that's one. So that one's going to go up a little bit more too. Maybe 1,500, if that, down the road. Probably not that high, but maybe a few more hundred. The thing is, though, can you confidently say there's 1,100 people, 1,200, 1,300 people that want that card? And would you confidently say that there's enough people that have the ability to spend $20,000 on a card like that?
And here's another thing. What's your other option? There's 78 nines. How often do you see, like, you see more 10s available than you do
You do.
nines? So it's a high grading ratio to a 10, but that almost does people who want this card a disservice. So you almost have to buy the 10 because these lower grades just don't come up for sale. That was my problem when I was trying to downgrade my PSA 10 D23 Lorcana cards. It's like I was having a tough time. Like, here I was wanting to sell my 10s and buy the PSA 9s to replace them. Cards like the Captain Hook, it's like, those are really high grading 10 ratios as well. But it was like just a utter pain, and so much I had to go through and so much work just to find the 9s and work out deals for 9s. So, and that was the Lorcana cards when everyone was grading them and they were hyped up. So like a card like this, being this old and people scooping them up for their collections, it's just...
And now they probably don't get out of the market. Like there's,
it's
how many,
few and far between.
what's the number it's got to hit for some of those people to even be willing to sell it? Because not only is it 20th anniversary Festa for 2016, but you have a lot of nostalgia towards 2016. I have a lot of nostalgia 2016. A lot of people in the hobby have a lot of nostalgia from 2016. Pokemon Go is a big part of that. A lot of people remember playing Pokemon Go and remember that summer. But a lot of people also remember getting to the hobby around then, or even in 2020 with the pandemic. But then going back further, it's what connects all of us to Pokemon, and at least with our age, and that's when Pokemon first emerged, the Kanto starters.
Yep.
It has that is what encompasses everybody in the hobby, just about. If you're a Pikachu fan, you want that card. Charmander fan, want that card. You want the original Kanto starters because that's your bread and butter. You're a bread and butter millennial. You want that card.
Yep.
That's not WotC or modern. This is a promo which art allows it to transcend everything in terms of its how it connects to collectors.
Yep, it's by far, like, literally a perfect card for me. It captures like my favorite style of Pokemon artwork when they kind of went to the anime cartoony look in 2016 again. Yeah, like you said, it's got all the starters. It's actiony. It takes out the whole card. If you like look closely, there's some parts of the card that break the border of the card, so it's kind of got like a level X gold star effect going on too that a lot of people don't really notice, but it just pops so well. Like the only thing it's missing is like texture on the card. Um, but yeah, it's literally perfect in any way. My favorite card of all time. If I
There's
had
an
the money,
8.
I'd probably buy another one.
Honestly, this is a card where down the road, it's not on my list, but it is a card that might come on my list eventually. Um, but the first edition Charizard takes precedence, and I probably am just going to get a PSA 5. But anyways, back. I kind of going on a tangent there, but this is a card where it's still at the price point where I can, especially in like a 5 PSA 8, excuse me. Hell, I'll take that PSA 1. I just want the card, okay? Like, but as long as the PSA 1, as long as the foil is still good, right? Like I don't mind getting like a played card, like PSA 6, if the frontland still looks good. Dude, I don't need a high end grade like that. I just want the card.
Yeah.
So that's very few of them where I would make that acceptance for, but there are certain grails in which I do that with. The RCS cards being right up there with it. Like it can be a played version. There's no foil on those, so it can be a played version, and I'd be completely okay with it, as long as you can still appreciate the artwork, right?
Yeah.
This is no different. And the first edition Charizard's kind of like that too, but I'm trying to get the best I can with that one. But there's just certain cards where you just want to have. But
Say, would
until
you
then,
sell everything just to have the Charizard and then maybe the Festa? Like if you really sat down and you like, Japanese style, like, minimalism, I just want to appreciate what I have. I just want to have very little. Would you sell it all to have just one Charizard and one Festa?
no, because a lot of my collection stems back to my childhood, and
Yeah.
a lot of the slabs that I have in my case were my childhood cards. Now you might be asking, well, why would you do that? Well, I want them to last potentially till past I die.
Yeah.
I want them to potentially go on, and I would like to be able to appreciate those cards even when I'm 60 or 70. Well, having those cards raw, even in good condition. So there's a thing where you might not, a lot of people don't want to necessarily talk about, but depending on the type of ink and paper you use, when you're looking at we're in our 80s, 70s, some of the ink specifically might not look as illustrious because, well, a lot of times, depending on how you're fusing that to the material, it can only last maybe up to 100 years. Now, some photos can go beyond that, obviously. It just depends on the type of paper and ink used and other factors like how was it. There's other factors you can use to create an image, but it's a real question mark that it made me concerned enough to where I don't want to deal with it. It would slow down that process because it's sealed airtight.
Yeah.
But that's why I can't. But I can't sell those cards though. But could I sell everybody? I mean, can I sell everything else besides the binder sets and the childhood cards?
Is that a yeah, it's a tough question. For me,
I
like,
I mean I'm basically there. I mean I'm
yeah.
not too far from there. Like I mean this last little cull I did, I do have like various things like boxes and from various empty sealed stuff that I have, that stuff that really isn't worth a whole lot, but I just want to keep for mementos. I mean, sure, I guess I could sell that, but I'd get like $20 for it. I'd rather just keep it.
Yeah.
But I would go down to bare minimum everything else, even the bulk I have. But I mean, at this point, I mean, like I said, I'm already almost there. You're talking maybe another $1,000. You can maybe $2,000 tops. I could squeeze out of all the other cards.
Yeah.
So I
I
mean, that's basically
have
what I'm doing.
I have my binders, and yeah, I've essentially done that. Like I always get in a selling mood and like purge a bunch and then just put it in more higher value, lesser items. Like less amount of items, just higher value. And then I'm kind of getting to the point where, I've graded the gold stars. I've been selling some of those. I don't have much else left. I mean, I got my binders, but I like those. And like ultimately, there's not many slabs that I want anymore. So once I close that gap, I could work on more binders. And then once I close that gap, it's like, well, what do I do then? Um, I could like see myself selling more of my graded cards that I would like if it were to go for like a PSA 9 first ed Zard. So that could be a situation, but then it's like the case I have would be too large. Like I need a graded case that's like between the smallest size they have and between the next size. I need like a 20 card case holder. But yeah, it's hard to say for me. I'm kind of nearing the end, honestly, for like cards that I want. The only cards of my Japanese type promo type that are kind of in the admire from a distance group for me, so I guess this is one of them on my side, is not necessarily Giovanni's Scheme, because I don't really like the art of that card for some
Hearsay.
reason. I do like. There's a lot of those. Maybe not a lot. Maybe I'm just seeing the same couple, but where Arita has signed and did a sketch on those,
Okay.
and I do really like those. Like, I just don't like the symmetry of the Persian. I think is the problem. But then on the copies that Arita has signed and sketched on, it like balances it out more. So I like those. I'm weird, I know, but the Here Comes Team Rocket, the other card from the Rocket special case, that is one that I would love to have. And I really only have Giovanni on my radar because that one's on my radar. If I ever got Here Comes Team Rocket from that Rocket box, it would kind of eat at me to not have the Giovanni too. That's just how I am.
God, these cards are so expensive.
Yeah, and those are the cards where I look at them and they're like the Mario style. And
But there's
in my opinion, Mario's are better, but they're twice the price or more. And I can't really justify that. Like, that's the type of card I collect for sure, no doubt. Like, I bought Mario, Luigi, Level X Poncho. Love that style, love that artwork, that anime style from that year. That's my bread and butter, but I cannot come to like paying that much. Just like I said about the Festa, it's like I don't think I would buy it at 9K today. I don't think I'd buy those either right now. I would have to sell, I would have to agree to sell like my binder collection, but in selling that, I would have to find someone who would appreciate value wise like what's in there, and that a lot of those cards are gradable, and that they'll make a lot of money grading them. But if I'm doing that, I may as well do it myself. So I'm in a weird spot with that. I don't know why I'm that way with those cards, and they're just expensive because it's kind of like the Mario Pikachu, but instead of the special box that Mario came in, it was like a metal briefcase box that they only did pre-orders for because it was too big of an item to make. It's just like a more rare Mario, pretty much. That's why those cards are pretty up there.
Yeah, see, I do love the art of it. Don't get me wrong. I do love the Giovanni artwork, but this is a card that's pretty much to me 100% admiration. It's a card that I don't see myself ever trying to make the run to buy it, but I love looking at it because of Giovanni's glare. He's got the old Kubrick glare, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
And that's why I like this, because that menacing, like truly like deadly 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, it is a cool card. Another thing too, like with that, it's like that's the price point where like even though I don't have that in my collection, I would love to add it, but like for that price, I could buy another Festa PSA 10
I mean, you're looking at
that I love
10K if
even more.
somebody. Yeah, I mean, if
So
somebody's even willing to give it up for 10,000.
yeah, it's like I would be willing to just buy another Festa knowing that I have two to where when they go up I could sell one and still have one. Like, because that's what would prevent me from selling it down the road is like, well, if I say goodbye to this, I'm never going to see it again. But if I had two, that'd fix that problem. So yeah, I would almost go for another Festa because yeah, the artwork has so much more. But I know the Giovanni and Rockets are much more rare, and the story behind them and the case they came in.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we're gonna, we talked about not seeing promos like this ever again. We're definitely not gonna see products like that ever again. I don't think, unless they're like mass produced in this UPC style. But
I mean, you're basically looking at $10,000 for this card. The most recent one sold, and I think that's the only one in the last 90 days, sold for 95.8.
yeah,
So, I mean, you're basically looking at a 10 grand. I mean, that's with sales tax. You might be able to get it for a little less,
right. Have to
but
give up my gold stars, some of my big gold stars for it, which I wouldn't really want to do.
I think it's the only one in the last 90 days that sold. So, yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Other cards, people always talk about trophy cards and all that. I don't know. Obviously, if I was like millionaire status already, I would probably go after those. But it's like, I don't know. It's just, it kind of runs into a niche problem. Like almost too niche. Like, yeah, the worth is there, but to find a buyer for a trophy card to like that level, that's my problem in having any card over that like 10,000 mark. Once you get to that mark, I mean, you're only selling to like the 1% of the 1%. This hobby is a lot bigger than people think. We're just seeing these 1% because the 1% are on eBay and
They're easy to follow.
Instagram all the time. So it wouldn't be as hard since, we know some of those guys, but yeah, it's like just the trouble finding that. I'm in semi talks with a guy about a PSA 9 Zard here lately. I basically told him, like, hey, if you sell it, great. I'm going to not be any rush whatsoever selling some gold stars and kind of wanting to wait till Kansas City Collecticon anyway. But even he's been really transparent with me, talking about offers he's getting, and it's kind of hard for him to sell that PSA 9 first ed base Charizard right now, just because the amount of money. But yeah, I think the only card that I'd be comfortable having to that caliber would be something like a first edition Charizard, something that is going to be on everybody's list no matter what. To get up to like trophy level, it's just absurd. Like, if I bought something like that, if I were, the millionaire status, it would be for the personal collection only. And to tie that amount of money up into something like one card just doesn't make sense. I mean, you could buy so much more. I would rather have the vast collection of insane grails rather than like one god tier grail.
Yeah, so you can't enjoy it as much.
Yeah.
Like,
And
even if
I would
I.
go for the Illustrator over the Trophy Pikas. I know the Trophy Pikas are more rare, especially the old art, especially fourth place. And I know all that, but it's like I don't know.
I don't care for those cards.
Yeah, the Illustrator is like more iconic. It's just
I wouldn't even go for the Illustrator, although it's got the story.
yeah. I would just want like a poor condition, like just authenticated copy. Like that'd be a card that kind of like you with the Festa. It's like I want to pay as little as possible. I just want it because of what it is. Like give me a PSA 1 that's just like authenticated only. But yeah, pretty wild the stuff you can get into.
Yeah. Was there any more that you had?
The only other ones I can think of are a little more reasonable, and that's just the entire poncho line in general. The Pikachu ponchos, full arts. Um, all of them are great. Down the road, I would probably go after those slowly. Kind of work my way backwards from the most expensive. But that's exactly what I did. I bought the biggest one, the Charizard, Mega Charizard X poncho. That was the only one I wanted originally because the artwork, it's unique compared to all the others. But there's a lot of them, and they're pretty pricey. So it's more of a matter of quantity. If I started going after those, I would want to try to get them all. So that's one goal that's kind of more realistic and possible. But I've definitely just admired from a distance. Like, I don't want to go down that road and just complete all the ponchos just yet, unless like that's the only thing I had left to do. So, of all the other ones, I'd probably start with Charizard Y, I guess, first, and then the Rayquazas and Carp and Gyarados. Carp and Gyarados are pretty cheap compared to the other ones. Or maybe I go for those in a 9. So I don't need to 10 everything out and be crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you? Got any like realistic ones that you kind of admire from a distance?
One of them I actually already own, but I don't own it in a 10. And that's what I was trying to look it up. Well, so make that there's 2 that I already own. But yeah, the Psyduck in a 10. There's very few cards I want in a 10 because I have to spread it out, right? Like, basically, I can't afford 10s is really what it comes down to. But there are certain cards that I would make happen for various reasons or another. And one of those is the Psyduck, with Camilla being my favorite card or favorite artist. And I think that's one of his best cards. There are a few other PSA 10s I'd go after for Camilla that aren't quite on the same level. You're talking first edition PSA 10 Dark and Light Slowking. And those aren't crazy expensive, and those are awesome works that he has. It's just simple, a couple $100. One day I would like to have it, but it's one of those things where I can't rationalize it when there's other things on the priority because it's so niche. But the other one I was talking about is the Satoshi Greninja. I actually have it out right here. But I'm looking at the PSA 10 on eBay because I was trying to see if the rarest form, the TV Tokyo stamped one, if there was one on eBay, and of course there isn't. There's only 100 of them or so around, and you showed me one not that long ago, and I forget what it went for. But that one is so niche.
I might be able to search here.
Because I was seeing if it was on eBay, and I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, there was some eBay ones here. Looks like 1,325.
But it's not TV Tokyo. It's the Satoshi one.
Yeah,
it says TV Tokyo, but it's not. If it's the one I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I know there's a bunch of different versions of that one.
Yeah, there's the TV Tokyo one, which is the rarest. That's the one you had to call in to TV Tokyo. It was like Christmas Day or something. I'd have to look at it. And it was like you had to call in to get it.
Hello, I want that Ash Greninja.
And then the other one was at if I'm not mistaken, was at a theme park. And you had Pokemon was there, and you had to go up in person. Oh, wait, what am I talking about? The songbook was
yeah,
the
like
other one. Was the Toshi. What was I thinking about that was where you had to go in person? I think that was the Japanese EX was from the stand, if I'm not mistaken. And then the songbook B, I think it was. They made 2 of them. You had Altaria and you had Greninja. And the other one, I think I got to the point where there was less than 20,000 made with the Satoshi ones overall, based on like at most.
Yeah, pretty nuts. I'm not too familiar with that card, but yeah, I know they got some rare
Well,
variants.
the TV Tokyo one, there's only 100. There's
Yeah, it's
only
pretty
one.
nuts.
Yeah, 100 for the TV Tokyo one. That would be on the list as well as the PSA 10. The PSA 10 Satoshi one, the one with the ash mark on it.
Yeah.
That one I think is going to be interesting because now that we no longer have Ash as the main character, and by the way, I've only watched one episode of the new Pokemon, and it's got an anime vibe, and I love it.
I think that one that was 1300 did have like Ash on it. So was that the only
Yeah,
variant with Ash on it?
no, the other one has TV Tokyo stamp. It's like green on the right.
Yeah, I
I was
think
trying to find a version. Yeah, the one I saw was the Satoshi one, the one with the Ash stamp.
yeah, I think that's what I had, the one I saw for 1300, but yeah,
It is.
I'm not sure what the other variants
Yeah,
entail.
the other one I couldn't even find it like like it's like a green stamp that has like TV Tokyo on it. And then it's the same thing. It's the same work as the Astro Ninja EX.
Gotcha. I remember seeing that one before, but yeah, I have no idea like of any sales on that. I'm sure that's one of the niche cards too. It's like that'd be amazing to have for a personal collection. Probably a nightmare to
To
get fair
sell.
value out of.
Because it's going to be based on whoever wants it. And this is where it's not, 1 second. Google is reading my microphone. And it's listening to everything I'm talking about as I'm saying, trying to find it. But yeah, anyways, it's I can't even see it with the images. Like there's so few images that you can't even find it.
Yeah. Yep. Any other cards on your list? One kind of came to my mind that is like obscenely realistic. Is just alt arts and special arts
Yep,
in
yep.
general.
That one was on the list to just talk
Yeah.
about something that wasn't crazy, but you love admiring, and they're cheap, and you might come across if you feel like it, but you don't feel any pressure.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to have a binder one day of just where I just start chucking in. There's not going to be any rhyme or reason. I'm just going to start chucking in cards that I think are cool and I'm just going to forget about. And then I'll just start a second binder, third binder. You know, that's my end game of collecting is when I could just buy $5 cards that I like and not worry about it. And then if I check them 10 years later and they're worth $100 graded, maybe I'll grade them. But just something that I could pick up at a show, like, ooh, I like that one. I like this one. So yeah, I admire those from a distance. I got too big of goals to really mess with anything. And that's what a lot of people fall into. You know, I talk to a lot of people who, you know, admire bigger collections and like, how do you do it? How do you do this? And then, you know, they're talking to me also like, yeah, I managed to buy 2 ETBs today. Didn't get much, but it was fun. You know, it's
Gambling,
like if you want a big collection, you really got to
there it
prioritize
is.
the goals. And like buying ETBs when you go to Walmart is fun, but like if that $40 could be put in a card that you actually want long term for your collection, like that's how you build stuff up. So, but yeah, I admire those from a distance. I would never like buy packs to get them, but they're getting so cheap now where it'd be nice picking up one here or there as I admire. No pressure on collecting them all. But yep, any others on your list? That's kind of all I had really.
I mean, that's kind of the majority of them, and I found it. It's not on the right; it's on the left.
Left side like a
And
green stamp.
yeah, here I'm gonna send it to you over Messenger since I'm on the old FB, or I'm on the computer too, so it's
Gotcha.
easier than getting the Telegram up.
Yeah. But yeah, if you guys are listening and you have any on your list that you'd like us to talk about, I mean, there's tons of cards out there, tons of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of really niche stuff and prize cards and promos and mini trophies that I would love to go after.
Mm-hmm.
Um, probably for binder reasons, but probably that way because it's just so niche and finding a seller for those things. A lot of the illustration contest, art academy cards, a lot of those I love.
I actually like the festival cards, the Pokemon festival cards that they release every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are an awesome card that they're like 250 or so per. Awesome artwork, great artists. Cards that are awesome art, like that you don't see in the actual sets that are relevant every year because they're tied to a major event.
Yeah. Yeah, and the old school Festa cards, we talked about 20th anniversary, but I think it started in
There's more than that.
2014.
Yep.
I think there's a 2014, 15, 16, 17, and maybe 18, maybe 19.
I can't think how many off the top of my head. I know there's one with Mewtwo, one with Hoopa, I think.
Yeah,
And then
Gengar.
there's two. Yeah, I think there's two with Gengar. Isn't there one that includes Shiny Gengar, if I'm not mistaken?
I think
it's
just
4.
one. But yeah, they kind of capture the era perfectly, just like the 20th anniversary did. So yeah, those would be probably on my list to collect. If I got the Scream promos, I would probably go after those because in a 10,
they're really not that expensive.
Yeah, in a 10 on those, they're like 1K or below for most.
Below,
right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are really cool, and they kind of stopped those. Like I said, I think 2018, 2019. But we kind of get the same effect with some promos today, like the Precious Collection box and the Worlds Pikachu deck promo. Certain cards like that, which those are sub 200, $300 in a 10 right now. So cards like that kind of continue that theme of like capturing in the era are like really appealing to me. And I admire a lot of those from a distance, but a lot of those cards, I'll probably be picking up like those other Festas. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting shift in my collection after KC Con. I think I'll have a lot of answers. But let me look up these Festa promos real quick.
Yeah, they're not that expensive. Because I still every time I look at them, I'm like, do I want to? But they're always at the point where it's just like,
Yeah, the one with Gengar is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cool artwork, but like, I'd rather have this card over that card. That's kind of what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, the one with the Mega Mewtwo, it's like XY 2015 when XY came out. That's probably the most lackluster for me, honestly. The Gengar one from 2014 looks a little better. And then the one after, the Solgaleo and Lunala from Sun and Moon when that came out 2017. Which maybe, I think that's the end of them. So maybe they only did 4.
Because then, yeah, the Mewtwo is not that expensive. The one from 20... Honestly, that 2015, I feel like that's kind of cheap. But it doesn't have the same level of, like, character. So I understand why it is cheaper. You see one sold in 630 or whatever for an auction. Of the ones, definitely the one with the Gengar and Sylveon definitely had more selling power.
That's the second best, I think. Yeah, you got the 20th Festa for what it is. Just happy.
There's the Mewtwo. There's the other one. It's got Lunala. That's the other one. Lunala and
Solgaleo.
So yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for 2018, but I think that's when they ended. There was the next one that came up was, or that they kind of include. I guess this is where they made the shift into like other promos, but it was like a Sword and Shield pre-order, I think. And it had all the 3 starters on there. But it was more of like a... Yeah, they went from the Festa to like that line. So, pretty cool cards, no doubt. But, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got to say.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up there, guys. We'll talk about our next topic and let you all know at the top.
1 second. the APR of the Charizard and
Oh
Venusaur. I'm just
yeah.
gonna go through. I'm just gonna go through really fast the when it comes to the numbers that I wrote down. And when I wrote down these numbers because again, we're a auditory base, sense that we're utilizing, not necessarily looking at it. So the numbers I wrote down were the ranges between that year. And it was kind of like a rough average of ranges.
Yeah.
Now, I'm also using the PSA site, which Nathan and I can both attest that isn't always the most up to date. It doesn't get every sale, but when you're looking back this far, it really is. I don't know of a better utility to use when trying to reflect trends in market from multiple eras within the hobby that includes, from as far back as 2016.
Yeah. It's kind
Most
of
of
tough.
PSA, yeah, I'd say most of PSA of the ones like I chose PSA 5, 7, and 9 of Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise. I chose those metrics for a few reasons. One, because the Charizard 5 and 7 was the one I was looking at. Charizard 9 is what Nathan was looking at, and I just followed the same thing with the other two for the big three. And there were some that was from the end of 2016, but mostly end of 2016, beginning of 2017. So you're looking at about 7.5 years or so, essentially, of data, which encompasses the first big hype in the Pokemon world, which was 2016, and then it encompasses 2020 and 2021. Now, obviously, with the market trends, you can kind of tell that the hype occurred in 2017 from 2016. Evolutions didn't release until November of 2016, so that's pretty easy to explain why.
Yeah.
And Pokemon as well. I mean, the Pokemon Go that also played a role. But first off, I think it's fun just kind of looking at a few of these prices.
Yeah. Let's hear
uh,
them.
yeah, okay. So I'm gonna start with the PSA 5 Venusaur and Blastoise. Looking at sub 100 to 150 in 2016. And then for 2017, you're looking at about the same. And it's interesting that you see a natural growth for a lot of these between these years. Kind of remind you of anything, Nathan?
Yeah.
Right. 2024, that's kind of what 2018 is, which is show just natural growth, a little bit steady, not too far off of where it was from its highs that it reached.
Nothing too
And
crazy.
nothing too crazy, just kind of steady. There was some hype, but it really wasn't crazy. 2016, like it did go up, but it wasn't like a splurge. It was because more people went in the hobby, obviously, right? From
Hmm.
2016, and the numbers reflect that. 2019, you're looking at 270 ish. For the PSA Venusaur 5, you're looking at for Blastoise about the same amount, which isn't too surprising. Both about the same. And then 2020 is when some of this shit gets insane. Uh, Now, so a PSA 5 for Venusaur, you're looking at about 1,500 to up towards to 2,500. Blastoise, you're looking at about 2,500 to 4K. I find this interesting because this is where the Blastoise has separated itself, which is weird because Venusaur is clearly the better of the two starters.
Boo.
uh, but and then this is where they kind of go back to more similarity. The PSA 5 is pretty comparable in terms of what they are now. You're talking about 5 to 700 for both, with Blastoise probably being a little bit more, but it's more even. But what I can't help but notice is even in this, you're looking at a 3 times growth essentially from 2017,
Yeah. Pretty wild.
and you're looking at 2 to 3 times growth when it comes to the between 2019. Now, the next ones I'll kind of stick with just the PSA 9s to kind of. I'll do the PSA 7 Charizard, PSA 9 Charizard, and I'll just do the 9s on the others. Because that's probably what most people are just
Yeah.
interested in hearing. Now, the PSA 7 was. This is where it's fun because in 2016 there was only about $600.
Pretty
Uh,
nuts.
and then it doubles in 2017 from the height. Kind of, it does a slow trend up, Again, sound familiar? And this is where shit gets real. 2020 for a PSA 7 hit as far as $35,000.
Should have sold my 5. Could have sold
I
my
mean,
5 and bought a 9 today.
now, I mean, don't expect that, okay? That is such an outlier. It's fun to look at. Don't expect 2016 is going to be the same. It's going to be more comparable. Whatever the growth difference is you want to apply with the factor, I'm not going to be able to do that for you. But overall, if you apply that with 2016 with the economic factor of like the buying power of our generation, it's going to be very interesting to extrapolate what percentage that might relate to. But then in 2021, it still followed suit. Obviously, it was still on the hype, and then now you're looking at between $6,000 and $8,000 with the PSA 7. So here's what's interesting from 2019 to now. You're talking about 3 to 4 times growth.
Pretty
I
solid.
mean, yeah. And with the PSA 9, you're talking again from 2016, 1,500, 2019, 5 to 6,000, 2020, 50 to 75K, and then now a PSA 9 is 15 to 20K. And now the PSA 9 was interesting because it had more growth in 2017, which is interesting to me. It seems like a lot of people that when they got in the hobby that might tell me people are saying screw it, they're going big when they were going after the PSA 9. I kind of feel like that might be the case. Might have been the case. It kind of makes sense, right? When you're talking about a couple $1,000s, but you rather have a PSA 9 or a PSA 5.
To me, that kind of goes towards like what we were talking about with the Festa earlier,
Mm-hmm.
like people's that jump to a 10. So many people get eliminated by that they go for the 9.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think that's true for today's prices as well. Like people buying a first ed Zard, they're going for the 9. You don't really see any 10s available unless they're huge auction sites. But yeah, as those 9s, the gap between 9 and 10 today doesn't really make sense.
No, it doesn't. It's like a
So
10x difference.
yeah, the 9s are going to have to go up, in my opinion, or the 10 come down. But I think the lower grades are going to be what shifts up over the next few years, just because people are buying those up, and because that's their only options.
We're seeing that with Mario, even as an example of just like something that you're seeing today. I sent you this afternoon. I was just curious about the price of the PSA 9 Mario, and I mean the PSA 10 is still pretty stable between the 5 and 6K, but the 9s have trended upwards a little bit. You're talking between 3 and 3,500, with some people saying screw it and paying 4,000 for PSA 9 apparently, if that's accurate from eBay. Um, And so you're looking at about 30 between 33, 3,500 now for a PSA 9. What is that? 65, 70% of the PSA 10.
Yeah,
And you're seeing that in real time. And eventually what's going to happen is those 9s and 10s are going to dry up, and then the 10s are going to go up even higher.
yeah, and you might see the 9s even creep closer, just like the PSA 9 Zard should.
Mm-hmm.
That gap will close, and then
And
unless one's either going to have to come up or the other go down.
and just for the PSA 9 Zard between 2016 and 2020, you're talking a 10 times growth.
Yeah,
I mean, even
pretty
even the PSA
wild.
7, let's admit, you're talking about like 5 times growth. Overall, the whole point of all these numbers that I went through to try to go, kind of get the point as quick as possible was on average between 2 and 4 times growth, with some potentially more and some maybe a little bit less. But overall, you're looking at 2 to 4x growth. And so you're talking about if you bought right now, which would be akin to, let's say, 2018 right now, 2018, maybe early 2019, around then, you're talking potentially grow. It can grow another 2 to 3 times by 2026 if you look at the trends.
Yeah, healthy growth, not bubble.
Healthy growth, yeah, healthy growth, and I think that's really interesting if you're looking at if you should buy this year, or if you're looking, should I buy that case of Evolving Skies, or
That's another
should you
story.
go? Yeah, I know. Let's not touch that with the pool just yet. But or do you go for a PSA 5 Zard, for example, me, or a whatever? Let's say a PSA 9 Venusaur or a PSA 9 Blastoise. Yes, you can get a PSA 9 Blastoise and Venusaur for under $5,000 right now.
Yep. They get no love.
No, and I'm just saying, to me, that feels weird. I'm not saying they should be 20K like Zard, because I understand why Zard is the way it is. But that much of a difference, really? You're telling me the Zard is a 4 to 5x multiplier over the other? Ugh.
He should be 10. Yeah.
It should have been me.
It should have been me.
Yeah, but no, with I don't know, Venusaur, I've grown to love from the Kanto generation. No, you don't like the Venusaur? Are you serious? What are you talking about?
No. It's the
No.
weakest for me. I'm just a normie. But yeah. I know what you mean. And yeah, time wise we need to cut it off here, but I mean, I think we were onto something when we were talking last summer about the market changing and bottoming out, because I've been saying I can feel it, and even Z&G Emporium made a video last week. He can feel it. People are feeling it. It's healthy, and things are shaping up. It's tax season as well. Winter's over. The December blues are over. It's just not necessarily a perfect storm like 2020 was, but a healthy storm for this summer. So we'll wrap that up, guys. Maybe we can do a another market-focused video here soon about our predictions. I feel like we're saying things are good, but maybe we should put some hard numbers on it, lay some bets down.
Well, I would say PSA 9 Venusaur just sold just a few days ago for $2,000. Yeah. And it's crazy because the PSA 9 hit 12.7. In the hype. If you're talking about underpriced cards, right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
Well, Z&G even said, James over there, he said the focus, WotC was going cheap for so long, but now people are starting to look back at those things a little more. And then, crypto money might have an effect. People cashing out on crypto.
But it's the nostalgia pull. Like you're already seeing the trend. Like you saw the trend in the early to mid part of the teens for the 80s. Well, sorry, 90s babies, but the 90s is coming next for that nostalgia. And you're already seeing it with the haircuts, with the clothes. You're already seeing it. I'm telling you, like
it's coming.
It's coming. Like it may not be the full hype that we saw in the 2010 decade when it comes to the 80s, but we're not too far from there, where I think we could see it sooner rather than later.
It's coming.
Yeah,
we gotta go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll catch you in the next one. We'll see some market talk in a little bit. And peace out.
See you later.